Hello there, kia ora. Welcome to this week's Omnibus. Another week jam-packed full of absolute bullshit from all quarters. There was Koroneihana and the back and forward flip-flopping from parties there about the Treaty Principles Bill. There was the Prime Minister's weird speech to local government New Zealand. There was just a whole bunch of racism that showed up on the video I did about Maori having never ceded sovereignty. Some of those people need to have one of those Clockwork Orange end scenes where they're being forced to watch actual documentaries and read actual information from experts around how history works, because wow, a lot of them use history to be incredibly racist assholes. And if they try to get on this one, the block finger has had a lot of working out this week and it will have even more. So just, if you don't agree with it, fuck off and go somewhere else. Anyway, sit down, watch the video, feel free to like, share, subscribe. If you're a member, you're going to see this before anybody else does, so feel free to, I don't know, talk up the perks of being a member. I don't know how it actually works, I'm still making it up as I go along. But anyway, sit down, watch the video, I'll talk to you guys afterwards. Hello there, kia ora. This week at Tūranga Waiwai is Koroneihana. It's a celebration of the anniversary of the coronation of the Maori King Tuheitia, who's the ceremonial head of the Waikato Tainui iwi. As the third largest tribe in Aotearoa, Koroneihana is a great opportunity for elected officials to speak to Maori. And what's said at the event isn't just heard by Tainui. As a matter of tradition, there's an open invite that stands for all leaders of political parties in Parliament, and all but one of them chose to take up that invite. I'm sure you can guess which one that was. Probably the one sitting at home licking his wounds after a really terrible weekend. After all, there was the shocking interview on Q&A with ACT's Nicole McKee, where it was revealed that she personally had lobbied directly to the John Key government to leave in loopholes in gun reform laws that were then specifically exploited by the Christchurch terror attacker that led to his decisions and actions. And then she couldn't defend her reasoning that the Police Association feedback on gun reform needed to be excluded from cabinet papers, only that she didn't really like it, so she didn't want it in there. This followed Friday's Waitangi Tribunal interim feedback on the Treaty Principles Bill, which was scathing. And then today, well, there are some things that legally I still can't talk about, but they started happening today as well. But despite their absence, ACT were front and centre on the first day of the event. They actually started the day by claiming that they were the one party not invited, despite assertions from the Kingitanga that said the complete opposite, as well as reiterating a standing invite issued for all MPs. And then in the afternoon, when Stuff asked Seymour why he wasn't there, he admitted that they did get an invite. But he felt that he should stay in Wellington and focus on important things, like charter schools. At the event itself, though, a theme came through. Maori feel like they've been hit by a bus, which was then reversed, and the Treaty Principles Bill is the most divisive piece of legislation this country has seen in a long time. It's a feeling backed up by the One News opinion poll that was released last night, which shows that 46% of people polled feel that there are rising tensions when it comes to race relations in this country. Although ACT, the party that's demanding the referendum and throwing its toys when anything that isn't English is used in any official form, blames Labour. But there is hope the Treaty Principles Bill will be taken behind the beehive and buried forever after its first reading. Understandably, Te Pāti Māori, the Greens and Labour are dead set against this bill, and the always transparent Luxon pointed out that he personally doesn't support it, and the National Party will not support it after its first reading. But when you get tweets like this from the Mangere National Party electorate, which were made during the live stream of the event, it does show that there's an undercurrent of national people keen on proceeding. Like MP Joseph Mooney, who has publicly stated he believes Te Tiriti gives each individual in the country the right to tino rangatiratanga. So the question then becomes, is Luxon going to hold the course, or is he going to end up caving if he's getting pressure from both within the party and from external sources like David Seymour throwing a tantrum threatening to break up the government? So the only party in Parliament that no one's really talking about in this process then is New Zealand First. But at today's event, they categorically and emphatically renounced the bill. They pointed out they have to vote for it in the first reading because of the coalition agreement, which Chloe Swarbrick did point out was really something they could renegotiate, particularly when you've got somebody in that agreement who wants to set up a Ministry of Regulation, therefore is against things like wasteful spending, and the bill is obviously doomed to fail, so what's the point of going ahead with it? Renegotiate the coalition agreement. But They promised, New Zealand First that was, that they are never going to vote for the bill after that first reading. Now, as with anything an elected official says, take it with a grain of salt. It's easy to make promises and not see them come to fruition. And while the rhetoric from Shane Jones is good to hear, New Zealand First still has in its midst Casey Costello, a founding board member of Hobson's Pledge, which makes it near impossible to believe that the entire party is unified on this. So we must remember that as much as we're promised a bill that's meant to be dead on arrival, a complete waste of time and resources for everybody, there are elements within all three coalition parties keen to see that this moves forward. And the real reason for it is not the introduction of a definition for anything or to have a conversation. It's there to stir up conflict, to justify regressive changes that disproportionately impact Maori in this country. It's a move designed to shake the Overton window towards a more, act-based ideology that it wants everybody to spout. And it makes it easier for them to have us at each other's throats in the future. It's a party that struggled to get to 9% of the vote on election night, and now it's trying to dictate to the rest of us how we should see ourselves and how we should connect with each other. But when that connection is division, that's not a way forward for anybody. Hello there, kia ora. There are some universal truths which are fundamental to what makes this country what it is. That we invented pavlova, but it was based on an old German dessert and modified. Or that the man who split the atom was from here, and we are, as a nation, really proud of that achievement, and also vehemently against what it led to. Or that Richard Pearce was the first person to create a working flying machine. It's just nobody else saw him do it. And that Maori never, ever ceded sovereignty when Te Tiriti or Waitangi was signed, but there's a bunch of racists out there who continue to believe that that's not what happened. Which is why it's really stupid for the Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, to say in the House yesterday that he does believe Maori ceded sovereignty in 1840, while being egged on by the Deputy Prime Minister, Winston Peters, who once, unfortunately, held all the Maori electorates. After the actions on Monday of the Mangere National Electorate during an event where the Prime Minister told people he wanted to bring everyone together and Maori have nothing to worry about, he goes and uses the line all racists over the country have been spouting to justify their shitty actions for years. To make it worse, he was determined to point out that he represents the Crown, which means in a way he's telling Maori that they ceded sovereignty to him as the Crown's representative. And he's wrong, because Maori never ceded. And we know this through a few different ways, like the fact that the vast majority of rangatira who signed the Te Reo version where the word sovereignty doesn't exist, they signed a version instead with the word kawanatanga, which is the word for governance. It's a promise that the British government was going to be there for British colonisers, but ensured the right of Māori to their own authority over the whenua. In 2014, the Waitangi Tribunal actually undertook a massive research piece to find a definitive answer to this question, and it found, after thousands of hours of digging, compiling, and contextualising, that Māori never ceded sovereignty to the Crown, and they never intended to. They pointed out that many chiefs who signed wanted protections and rights for their people and expected Te Tiriti to form a partnership, not an imbalance of power. The fact that Māori continued to exercise authority over their land and resources and maintain their traditional systems of governance and social organisation actually showed that they had not an expectation set up for a change of systems. That the Crown's actions have conflicted with the basic principles of partnership, protection, and participation that the document promises. That it's a living document where today the principles are considered in a case-by-case basis, not an overarching ideology that's defined in a single way, which shows that the document's meaning is relationship-driven, not a cessation of sovereignty. And from an international legal perspective, the principles of self-determination for Indigenous peoples is at the forefront of how any treaty is considered, meaning the version of Te Tiriti signed by the rangatira is the one they accepted, which does not cede sovereignty. And it's been that guiding principle that has, for about a decade now, been the approach which informed government and how they approach issues between the Crown and Māori. Since he took power, Luxon has been trying to convince voters, in particular Māori voters, that he's their mate, and only rolling back protections for Maori across areas like health, education, and services like oranga tamariki, while minimising the use of the language because his coalition partners have him by the short and baldies, and he needs to do it to keep his coalition together. But then we start to see the mask slipping. During the campaign, we saw national candidates do the "we believe in one person, one vote, but not going to elaborate, wink, wink, nudge, nudge" performances from a range of candidates around the country. During Koroneihana, on Monday, we saw the Mangere National Party electorate post racism-laden messages because, to quote their apology that wasn't an apology post, they forgot to change their profile. And now we have the Prime Minister admitting he believes in the same racist bullshit spread by groups who pay for front-page ads on the Herald to talk about the foreshore or give away free copies of Apiriana Ngata's translation of Te Tiriti. In every party in the coalition of chaos, there are elements who seem keen to push division. Our Prime Minister, who promised us on election night that he would govern for all New Zealanders, should not be on that list. But I guess that's the list that he's on now anyway. Hello there, kia ora. Every year around the motu, over 1 million people take part in events organised or funded or supported by their local councils. These might be things like concerts or festivals, movie events, parades, cultural showcases. It might be something held at a community centre that your council funds, or parks that they provide, or even organisations that they support. It covers arts, shows, cultural performances, filmmaking, and so many other things. Each council is different and each region is unique. This year, for myself, I've worked on 40 different council events with nearly 250,000 attendees. So I know that people are going to these things. And yesterday the Prime Minister announced that the government is going to change the legislation that makes these available to the public. Instead of changes that the local authorities actually asked for, which would have seen sweeping progressive changes to local authorities, the government has decided instead to gut the Local Government Act and remove the 4 pillars of well-being section, which are essentially what they say on the box. 4 different pillars councils need to take on board when it comes to the decision-making process that they use. Instead, they've been told to focus on core infrastructure, and at the same time have been promised no more funding for frivolous want-to-haves. They're literally gutting the communities these councils work with, and because the idea of a holistic community approach for the betterment of all is something they seem to refuse to accept. Just about everything this government does, their decisions don't work in a vacuum. And removing the 4 pillars from local governance is going to have an incredibly detrimental impact on communities all over the country. For example, council investment into the creative sector means local artists can do what they do, helping the creative sector actually become one of the largest drivers of our GDP, with knock-on effects that show the creative sector is linked to things like health, public well-being, tourism, community building, and education outcomes. Community events help foster a sense of belonging, and research has shown that removing these removed that sense of belonging for communities, which leads to an increase in crime, a disconnection from local issues, and could be responsible for outcomes in schools and a reduction of effectiveness of public safety measures on our roads. That sense of belonging and wanting what's best for communities is also a really strong driver for many people who go out to try and get elected around the country and be involved in their local authority. These people have a vision for their community and want them to succeed. But if the role of council is simply to pay for pipes and fill in potholes, you lose the advocacy local elected officials have to help bring real change to their homes and help the people who live there. Yesterday's decision is nothing short of a great big fuck you to those who want their homes to be better places for all, for those who know that there's some amazing potential in every corner of the country waiting to be unlocked. It's a great big middle finger to councils who have told this government to do better at letting them do their job. And it's yet another short-sighted decision from a government that wants us all to believe that success is only ever measured in dollar signs and balance sheets, because they lack the imagination and community connection to realize that successful communities lead to a successful country. But when it comes to dollar signs and balance sheets as success markers, well, maybe the government doesn't really measure up there either. Hello there, kia ora. Look, I'm going to keep this one really short and simple because, well, there's all sorts of things going on. Like, my brother's visiting at the moment. He's up from Christchurch. Haven't seen him in almost a year. It's nice to spend some time and hang out with him. Also, hi to his co-workers who apparently watch this from Christchurch. I hope you're staying warm. He showed me photos of the mountains, and the snow is beautiful, but it looks really cold. Yeah, on top of that, we're also planning for tonight's Behind the Walls of Parliament episode. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. We've got Ricardo Menendez March from the Green Party and Clint Smith, who's a communications advisor who's worked with the Labour and Green parties. We've also got Jan Tinetti on talking about education, charter schools, what our education system actually does really well, and some of the areas that perhaps we need to tidy up a little bit and look at in different ways. There's some really fascinating stuff that comes through in that. So yeah, 8 o'clock tonight on the Facebook and YouTube pages. The other thing that you can do is go to the Parliament website, and I'm going to put a link in the description on this one. Blake has actually set up a petition to try and make our government rethink their position on what they're doing with whaikaha and rolling it into MSD and the possible risks and harm that that can cause. So there'll be a link in the description on that one, and we'll give you more information about it specifically over the weekend. So that's pretty much the update for the video. I'm going to edit this and go through and delete all those racist comments that have popped up on my YouTube page for people going, wow, just because the Prime Minister said something racist, showing that he's being racist, you can't call him racist, it's just a difference of opinion, go and play with your toys. There's been a few of those for some weird reasons. Like there are a bunch of snowflakes who get upset about the littlest of things. Anyway, I'm going to leave you guys for the rest of your day. Don't forget, tune in tonight from 8 o'clock on those channels, and I will look forward to seeing you guys all there. It's such a short little thing. Right, this is Simeon Brown, the Minister for Local Government, seen here with a normal sized pair of scissors. He rejected claims from some local councils this week requesting exemptions from his forced racist referendums because they set up Maori wards before the changes Labour put in place. For two of the councils, Hobson's pledge actually tried to counter with a 5% referendum that would have triggered the old system, but failed to reach the amount required, showing that the community broadly supported the changes. Brown, however, claimed that 3 months isn't enough time to collect signatures, so is forcing councils to continue showing that this government will give you all the time in the world to find racists throughout entire regions who want to go along with them. Education Minister Erica Stanford, seen here showing how far she can stretch the truth, continued to double down on claims in our schools that they are failing maths based on data that is statistically small. 0.38% of students gave results in an area that they weren't taught in. When challenged on this, she's simply turned around and said, nope, we're doing what's right for the kids. On Wednesday, Associate Housing Minister Tama Pōtaka, seen here showing how many social houses this government is planning to build this term, was quoted as saying, I'm not worried that some are homeless, when asked about inconsistent numbers released by this government that indicate children were made homeless recently by their policy around emergency housing. When grilled further, he said his focus was on the housing crisis, and the new child catcher team will take care of those pesky homeless kids. Also on Wednesday, it was revealed that David Seymour, seen here showing a member of the public how to work a hand puppet and make it Prime Minister, that his Ministry of Regulation staff were being paid an average of $150,000 a year, well above the average public service salary of $85,000. Coincidentally, on Wednesday, it was also revealed the police were culling 170 roles to save $55 million, which apparently is wasteful spending, but a Ministry of Regulation with 90 staff on an average salary of $150,000 isn't. It was revealed earlier this week that a former gun lobbyist who successfully lobbied the John Key government to not close loopholes that were later exploited specifically by the Christchurch terrorist, Gun Reform Minister Nicole McKee, seen here with an ACT Party voter, still holds shares in gun safety training organisations. While she claims she hasn't operated her organisation since 2020, as a minister in charge of reforming gun laws with a history of choosing to remove expert advice from frontline police who could stand to profit from changes that she makes, this is almost as bad as owning shares in Auckland Airport from when you were a kid. On Wednesday, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, seen here watching Tama Potaka's child catcher at work, told local government representatives to stop focusing on frivolous nice-to-haves and to get back to core infrastructure. Now, there'd be no more handouts. It takes a really special kind of tunnel vision to go up and down the country to talk to hundreds of elected officials about the needs of their community and to have your one takeaway be that all they do is ask for money after giving a handout worth billions to landlords and the wealthy. In Queenstown, nearly 30 pride flags were stolen from street displays for their upcoming Pride Festival celebration. Organisers point out that this looks like a premeditated act, and actually this afternoon, after I've done all the slides up, they have released images of the people who have done this, which you can find on major news outlets at the moment. By doing this, though, the thieves have ensured that even more people know about the Pride Festival, so well done, thieves, you rammed this down your throat. And it just went to go and show again during comment sections exactly how they don't understand what irony is in the Deep South. And finally, this week, Kaipara Mayor Craig Jepson, seen here standing by himself, got really, really close to getting the point in a column that he published on the New Zealand CPR website, where he pointed out the only Maori representative elected this term was the Maori ward councillor, but there were more last term. Not quite realizing that part of the reasoning behind a dedicated Maori voices on council is to ensure that there are Maori voices on council all the time, no matter which way voters choose to vote. Now, if you want to track this down, you can actually find it on the NZCPR website. Please make sure to sanitize your eyes before and after you go and check out any of the racist drivel that they've got. It's actually directly under a report just released by Dr. Muriel Newman, where she points out that Maori wards are there just so that leftist governments can get what they want, because Maori are nothing but activists who are trying to make sure that the whole country is at each other's throats, especially those terrible elite Maori who are trying to ruin the country. And I really wish that was a joke, but that's pretty much what her whole rant was. So yeah, that's it for the news this week. Hey guys, thanks for joining me for this week's Omnibus. Again, another week full of an absolute crap fest that we just have to try and muddle our way through. But it is really important that we muddle our way through and tell people about what is happening and how it impacts us. That's the most common question I get on all my platforms, is what can we do about what's going on? And unless you're the Governor General or King Charles III, probably not much at all. But letting people know what's happening, letting people know how it's impacting you is a really good way to make sure that we start seeing those dialogues change around what's important to the communities that we all live in. Hey, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell everybody about this, and until next time, have a fantastic week. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. I don't know, of all the people I ever met in the universe, you were the most human. Until next time.